As we think about Trump's presidency, 2016 to 2020, I wonder, and you probably do too, did Trump underestimate the swampiness of the swamp and the depth of the problem that he was dealing with in the government? I think the answer to that is probably yes. And I think that Trump himself would admit it, that things are worse than he thought. That in fact, his presidency threw a kind of light on just how bad things are. Now, one of the things that Trump realized is that it's very difficult to change government because of the permanent class of people that run the government. Now you may say, the permanent class, what are we talking about? Well, we're actually talking about the administrative bureaucracy, the administrative state. The civil servants that populate all these agencies and all these departments. There are, by the way, hundreds of thousands of them. We have some 432 agencies, and about 3 million people work for them. Now, only a tiny percentage of those people are political appointees. So here's what we're getting at. You have these agencies, they have a tremendous amount of power. Why? Because not only do they have a lot of numbers, the political appointees are few, the career people are many, but the career people are experts in those areas. The career people at the CDC are people who have been there for many years. They know the ins and outs of how it works. So some political appointee comes in and he's like, how does this place run? And they're like, let me tell you, it works like this, works like that. You can do this, you can't do that. And so even the political appointees end up becoming not servants of, but it's kind of at the behest of the career staff who kind of run the place. Now, this all raises a really interesting question. We're living in a democracy, and so the question is, who elected these people? They're not part of the legislature. In a sense, they're not part of the executive either, because Biden is, at least in a sense, and I think you know what I mean, elected. And you have political appointees who are named by the elected leader, but nobody elected these career people. And they're not part of the judiciary either, so they're like a fourth branch of government. Now, very interestingly, toward the end of his term, Trump figured out an ingenious way to strike out at these people, to drain the swamp, to root out a good bit of the deep state. And it is his idea, which is just unbelievably creative, original, and effective, was called Schedule F. Schedule F. Schedule F. And quite honestly, I didn't even know about it until after the Trump presidency. But it is the reason I mention it now is that I think that this is something that Republicans should be working on as we get to 2022, but even more important as we get to 2024. Why? Because we don't want to be in a situation where Republicans take the House and Senate, and what happens? Nothing. Republicans just basically sit around for a couple of years, and then even if Republicans win in 2024, so what? What will they actually do? How are they going to drain the swamp? Well, Trump has figured out a way to drain the swamp, and not just Trump, but Trumpsters and Trumpian candidates can participate in this way of cleaning out the unelected branch of government, draining, you might say, the fourth branch of government, which is the clinical meaning of the swamp. It's also the clinical meaning, by the way, of the deep state, because by deep state here, we mean the unaccountable state. So what's the idea? What is this business about Schedule F? It's really simple. It is, what is a formula for, let's say you want to cut the Food and Drug Administration in half. How do you do that? The Environmental Protection Agency. What if you want to fire everybody or fire just about everybody and leave 3 guys? How do you do that? Well, the answer is this. Right now in government, there are 2 classifications. You're a political appointee or you're a civil servant. And the president only controls the political appointees. So Trump's idea, really simple, is called the change of designation. What if the federal government were divided into 3 categories? Political appointees, civil servants, and Schedule F. Schedule F is a new category, and the simple idea is it's a category now of people who might have worked for the government for a long time who can in fact be fired. In other words, Trump or a president, a Republican president, would be able to fire pretty much at will tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of federal employees by converting them from civil servants to Schedule F. Now, when Trump proposed this idea, the Washington Post went berserk because they realized what it would mean. They realized in fact, they said that Trump was getting ready to sort of slash, quote, the greatest strength of the U.S. government. Now, why is the Washington Post saying that? It's calling them the greatest strength because we can't get rid of them. So they are the permanent foot soldiers of the left. And so the government will never be in our possession as long as you've got this kind of hostile force, not only running the government, but in some ways running the country. So Trump, as a businessman, as a guy who made his reputation with the phrase, "you're fired," has figured out a way to fire tens, if not hundreds of thousands of government employees. The idea came too late to be put to fruition, but the idea is there. It's kind of like nuclear weapons. Once you know how to do it, you may not have a nuclear weapon, but the know-how itself is powerful. And this is an idea we want to carry forward into 2024.